Aloha kako. Ooh, I keep forgetting I always have two here. But aloha, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our last Mauli Ola virtual gathering of January. We will be back on March 4th, so we'll be taking the month of February off. So be sure to mark your calendars. We have a great setup with Lizette Flannery and getting a series of her movies in leading up to Mary Monarch, and then a few kind of community activities that we're going to be doing centered around Mary Monarch and pulling us together during a time where we unfortunately cannot go see, visit, and be around our ohana. So mahalo nui for coming today and supporting us, and then also hopefully see you back here on March 4th. So please hang tight. We are just giving a little bit of time for some other folks to join us, but we'll be starting in just a few minutes with today's session. I am so amazingly super excited to talk about this and to hear more about it. I think it's such an exciting thing that Solomon and Liko are doing to bring our stories and our really just up to the forefront and seeing them imagined. I am so excited. So sorry for sounding very excited. Mahalo nui again. A few more minutes and we'll be starting shortly. Okay, mahalo nui loa for hanging out with us. Thank you so much. To answer Jasmine's question, yes, we do have access to previous events. Actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have all of our videos of the past Maliola events there. So you can go ahead and look up Halavai on YouTube. And if you cannot find that easily, you can go ahead and go to halavai.org. And we have an archive of all of our videos from all of the sessions that we've taken videos of. There are one or two that there's 2 or 3 maybe that we don't have videos of. But also on there are links and references from the Q&A and talks that we've had before. So thank you so much for asking, Jasmine. Yes, and I do not have my video on, but I have my video on now. Aloha, everybody. So let me just stop sharing the screen and get us started. Great. So can I pass this on to Chris?
Yep.
Okay, it seems like Chris is getting together some things that we have here. Can you, is it that nobody can see the videos right now? I thought I double checked. Kalamai might have some feedback here. But let me just triple check. So this was working earlier.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, yeah, I saw Kaliko earlier.
Yes, so we can hear you. So to start, I think everybody can see. Yes.
Okay. Was there a way for me to see, oh, gallery? Oh, here we go. Okay.
Everybody's on. I see everybody.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't have the gallery on. So everyone can see us?
Aye.
We're all visible to all? Okay, we got like 20 people in the room. Okay. Oh, no, na e hau, e hau lani mano nui, e ka loku, e ui e, o koi noia, e o mai. Ai, o wau no, o kama. O no na e hau nu, e hau lani mano nui, e ka loku e ui e, o koi noia e o mai. Ai, o wau no, o kama. Aloha. So welcome to our Mauliola virtual gathering. And I'll try to keep up with the comments in the chat, but please feel free to leave your questions as we go along, and we'll try to catch them towards the end. So we have a few video clips, lots of wonderful artwork and stories, and a little background. So just Chris Kato goes back and forth to another musician. Oh, aloha, Deborah. So we're gonna introduce 3 words for you. And before you leave, you'll know these words a little better. It's Makahiki, KAMAPUA, and Transmedia. Okay, so let me just first play a short clip that will give us some insights into the first word, which is Makahiki. And this is taken from Kamehameha Publishings, but I edited a little bit, shortened it for our purposes here. So let me share this screen. Share the sound. Okay.
Hey brother, how are you?
What's up,
Peho'oi.
Makai?
Good to see you. I see some friends on the side of me and I wanted to introduce you. Folks, come over here.
Hey!
How are you guys doing?
Aloha koe na kiki.
This is Kapono Souza. And you caught us at a good time because we're here in Wai'anae at Ku'ilio Loa to talk about a very, very special topic. You know, when I look around, it's really green today and it reminds me of Lono.
Oh,
Lono.
Hi.
Now, who is Lono?
well, that's a loaded question. You know, Lono is one of our ancestors and an akua of ours, and he typically is the one who comes with. He brings the rain. He brings abundance. It's a time set aside to put aside our differences and rest and recover. Typically, it coincides with the rainy season.
Right.
And winter, basically, ho'ilo. And you know, one of the significant parts about Lono is the fact that it's a period where we can rest and recover.
Okay.
You know, the waves are too big. There's a lot of rain. You know, we just harvested, and it's a time to really reconnect with each other as family.
Wow. What are some other elements of Lono?
Okay, well, I could summarize it in three simple ways. Excellence, abundance, and gratitude.
Excellence.
I think those are
abundance,
the three main points that I think are probably the most important things.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we talk about excellence is always giving the best you possibly got, whether it's in academics, whether it's in your art, whether it's in sports,
Right.
whether it's in culture, whatever it is that you're doing, always try to do your best and always try to better your best. So when we talk about abundance, you know, a couple things that are really come to mind is if you look around, you know, Lono brings the rain.
Right.
Lono brings the ho'oulu, the greenery, the medicine. You know, these are the things that make your area, your community, kaulana, yeah, famous,
right.
wealthy, the water, the vai. This is really the true essence of abundance.
So take care of that stuff.
Malama.
Yeah, and to be grateful.
Yeah.
Like you say, the gratitude is
Yeah.
the third one, right?
So, exactly. So when we talk about being grateful and expressing gratitude, our aloha
Yeah.
it comes from deep within, right?
Right.
It's one thing to say, you know, I'm really happy, and, you know, thank you, but you have to really mean it with conviction. The best way to really understand that level of gratitude is to actually immerse yourself. This process of immersion.
Wow, brother, mahalo for sharing. This has been pretty awesome and something for us to think about, yeah, as we journey around the island like you did today in your huaka'i and we reconnect with our abundance. We gotta think about gratitude, excellence, and putting our best into what we do. Right. So that is the essence of Lono. And we'll talk to you later. You take talk to you folks too. Take care. Aloha.
Okay, so that's a little introduction to our Akua Lono. And, you know, I like to say to friends, Thanksgiving is one day out of the year, but Makahiki is 4 months of Thanksgiving. So what an amazing way to be in just being gratitude for 4 months. So we usually say, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. But we can't forget Makahiki if we are in observance of that time of peace and gratitude. So we say, Lono ika Makahiki. All right. So this ties back to our presentation today because it's Makahiki and the role that KAMAPUA plays in this seasonal, this time of the year. So I'm just bringing back my slides. One moment. And yeah, I want to share this image. And we have the artist here with us. So I just want to introduce Solomon Enos. And could you share us a little story about this painting and your connection to it and Makahiki?
Well, aloha everyone. Mahalo for this opportunity for Kaliko and myself to share real quick with you guys some of what we're channeling here. This image is let me think. I created it about 15 years ago, and it was one of my first interpretations of KAMAPUA. And we'll be talking a lot about KAMAPUA later. But this is an oil painting. It's about 36 by 48. And it shows KAMAPUA in the lo'i, in the taro patch. And behind him, there is another manifestation of KAMAPUA as a giant boar in one of his other forms. And he's got 8 eyes. And if I could add one more word to the list of vocabulary, maybe that's what transmedia is. Maybe another way to think about transmedia is makavalu, 8 ways of seeing, 8, and 8 ways of interpreting reality. Especially as we emerge from the fake news era, asking questions about data and information. So makavalu, maybe makavalu would be another way to talk about transmedia. But anyway, so this is a painting, one of my first interpretations of KAMAPUA, and I'll leave it at that.
Mahalo nui.
Can you talk a little bit about the Solomon, like what was happening with the painting when it was traveling around to different people's houses?
Oh yeah. Interestingly enough, this painting, I basically lent it out, and interestingly enough, I don't know where it is now. it's disappeared, and I don't really mind. That's fine. Somebody has it, and that's wonderful, and it's making the rounds. I have no desire to have it back. It would never belong to me. I own the paint and I own the actual material, but that's it, and that's all I own. But apparently everybody who owned it, who borrowed a painting, they all had children. So KAMAPUA is a symbol of fertility. He is also a symbol of regrowth, and definitely a great theme to explore, especially today, talking about regrowth and talking about the redefining, what our values are and resetting the stones. So yeah, it is he is the fertilizer.
Mahalo nui. And was the video okay for you guys? I'm gonna try another way to play them. So thanks for bearing with us. And then last summer, you started sharing new work of KAMAPUA over Instagram, and I just wanted to share some of those images for those who haven't seen it or those who are not on Instagram. Let me just share. There you have the Makavalu, yeah. And Kamapua in his fish form, Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apua. We have another one here. And so, tell us about, were you guys already working on this, or did the outbreak and the pandemic kind of accelerate that? Or how did you guys start to collaborate?
Kaliko?
Yeah. So hello everybody. My name is Kaliko Wai'i, and I'm coming from Kauai in Anahola. We're actually in quarantine right now. I just had to run and talk to the National Guard right now. It's tipped out for a second.
Oh my gosh.
Me and Solomon, like 10 years ago, we talked about doing different projects within the Polyfantastica, and for the past 10, 12 years, I've been working as a camera assistant in the film industry, and right now I'm kind of out of it right now. We moved to Kauai, and I'm always looking for new projects. Animation is definitely one of the things that's top on my list, because we do animations in Olola, Hawaii. And I was actually talking to Ikaika Hasi, which is one of our other partners, and he was interested in creating some type of animate series to Hawaiian related, maybe a group of young characters who you could use Oli for their superpowers, different ideas, and because he was very interested in making toys for making toys for, and making things that are cool, interesting, and from our point of view, from a Hawaiian point of view.
Do we have one of those toys?
Well,
I think we have one on standby.
We do that.
Oh,
Solomon was messing around with.
Was under wraps.
So COVID, everyone's in their houses. It was the thick of COVID when everything was locked down. And for me, being on Kauai, all my production friends are all on Oahu. So I'm already on the island to myself. And I seen that Solomon started posting these pictures of our kua, and he did it kind of in a Studio Ghibli style. And the one that really caught my eye was Nenewe, the shark god.
Yeah.
And yeah, there he is, Nenewe. That was the one that sparked my interest to work with Solomon to make an animate series. And in particularly, the way that Solomon explained this character was that he has a problem with addiction, and I never thought about that akua in that certain way of dealing with addiction. But his addiction is human flesh, and he tries his hardest to resist it, and he eventually he can't resist, and which leads to his downfall. Which is is a totally different way of looking at Nenewe for me on the side of the addiction. So that's the story that I wanted to go head on into, tell that story of Nenewe. But after some time, we realized that Nenewe wouldn't lead to other things. It would just kind of stop there. And that's when we decided, okay, let's look at Kamapua. Kamapua is more like, hey, let's go on an adventure together. He's more inviting. That could lead to all sorts of other things, which could lead actually into Nenewe. like Kamapua's path can lead into Nanaue, or we can tell a series of short stories starting with Kamapua as kind of the gatekeeper, the gateway to introduce this whole rebuilding of old world of all these gods, and looking at the lessons that we can learn from the old gods and the old stories. Like especially for us who live in Hawaii, we there's lessons there that can save our lives. So it's not good to just totally dismiss all the old stories. So that's kind of how it started with
There's
Nanaue.
medicine in it.
And I still want to tell the Nanaue story. I still want to make it creepy. Still want to talk about addiction, human flesh, and but you know, that would be a great piece in the middle of all these other Akua stories.
And as we just discovered, DC Comics actually lifted the name Nanaue. Maybe not the character itself, but kind of took liberties. So this is from the DC Comics website, and they had to rebrand him as King Shark, because who would remember Nanaue, right? But I think that's just because they don't have the story. They're missing the story, and so they just created their own little mythology. But what I think I'm getting from what you're sharing, Kaliko, is this idea of not only a Marvel universe, but an Akua universe. You know, so we have Marvel, who does this very well. You know, they have many different characters, and they all weave into this cinematic universe. But when we look to the heritage of Hawaii, and we find that it's very rich in stories and folklore as well. So you're saying that Kamapua is just the first installment, yeah, of a bigger endeavor.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I have another image I'll just share. Could you tell us about this image, Saul and Kaliko?
Oh, sure. This was you know, there's this tremendous amount of freedom that we have now, because you know we're doing this. You know, the way we're approaching this is kind of like we are opening up land. These stories are like land to us, and it's like land that's been grown over with weeds, and it's been covered up for a long time. And what we are doing is we're pulling up all the weeds, and underneath all the weeds are existing agricultural sites. Underneath all of this, underneath all of the noise, there are these amazing stories that our ancestors were gathering in the Hawaiian newspapers at a time when Hawaii's literacy rate was only second to Scotland, right? So, I mean, and I think, you know, so there were 150 independent Hawaiian newspapers, and they were all serializing our mo'olelo, our traditional stories. And these stories were being gathered as a, you know, and they were being uploaded into print. They were being shape-shifted from spoken word into the new fandangley, you know, high-tech technology of the time, which was the printing press. And because of that, they were preserved. And so this is just one story about how Kamapua travels to Tahiti. And in Tahiti, he meets Lonokaehu. And Lonokaehu is this, you know, chief who has these magical powers. He's an abusive chief. Kamapua goes and he fights with Lonokaehu. But in this scene, he's seen taunting Lonokaehu. He's calling him out. And the way that he taunts him, it's hilarious. It's really, there's a lot of humor. There's a tremendous amount of sense of humor in all of our legends and stories that really I'm excited about communicating. But it's a little bit R-rated, so I'll save it. I'll let you folks discover it on your own. But one of the interesting things that I'm fascinated about is they talk about Lonokaehu having 8 foreheads. He has this god, the eight four-headed god. And I just said, what in the world are we talking about here? So what he does in the story, he sends his foreheads to chop at Kamapua. And it says his forehead will chop against the side of the mountain, and part of the mountain will come down. He'll send another one of his foreheads, and Kamapua will dodge, and his forehead will like cut down a whole part of the forest. I'm like, what is going on? So for me, what I thought was he's like some kind of a telekinetic, so he's controlling these giant, monoliths of basalt, and he's like sending them at Kamapua. And so I thought, to me, like this is somewhere between Hayao Miyazaki and Guillermo del Toro, which is a kind of a fun place to occupy somewhere between Ghibli and Pan's Labyrinth. But one thing I was really excited about was being able to almost like we're peeking into another dimension, and in this other dimension, people have already made animation of our story. So it's almost like we're watching a still frame of an animation that's already been finished. And I absolutely love doing this because it's almost like it gets us to that reality. So I painted the background like it were a Hayao Miyazaki set, up in the mountain somewhere in Tahiti. And then I created a kind of an anime style, a cell animation anime style layered onto the painted background so that it has that animated, almost like a still shot from an animation. And I'm sorry, my neighbors just started weed eating, so I'm going to turn off my mic now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chris, I think you're frozen. But just to reiterate what Solomon is saying, it took.
It's okay, Kaliko, go ahead. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
Issues
for the hokulea to be built, it took an artist. It took somebody who could see hokulea to draw exactly how it's going to look before they could even start building the hokulea. And it's kind of the same thing with Solomon. He can see all these little details. He can and he's almost like bringing them back to life, in a sense. Yeah. And the great thing about Solomon is
a bit about your Hawaiian language background.
Yeah. So I grew up in the 80s, and for me, I grew up in the country in Honolulu, and the only outlet I had to the world was my TV and the movies of the time. Like Big Trouble in Little China and Lethal Weapon movies, and that was my, and I love those movies. I love those pop movies from that time, and those guys were my heroes. Those like, Patrick Swayze and all those guys, and kind of my only counter I had to pop America, mainstream America, was going to Hawaiian language school, and our teachers reading from us straight out of the Hawaiian newspapers, reading the stories. A lot of those stories were not appropriate for kids, but it was funny. It was hilarious to me as a child. Like, there's a scene where a shark has the head of a father, and he's laughing, and the head is just like bouncing around in his mouth, and that was the only content we had back then. We didn't have books. We only had like a couple books, but we had Hawaiian newspapers. And in a sense, we're doing the same thing. We're going through the Hawaiian newspapers. We're going to the different versions of KAMAPUA and doing our interpretation of of KAMAPUA and doing an updated because there hasn't really been an updated version of KAMAPUA in a while in terms of in a kid's book or pictures and paintings and whatnot, and even like Solomon's interpretation of Lonoko Ehu, like the way he envisioned the extra foreheads. Like it's just our particular interpretation, and you know, I know there's going to be tons of interpretations of KAMAPUA in the future.
Yeah, like how there's like dozen Spider-Mans and Batmans, you know.
Exactly. That's a great
Awesome.
point with Batman.
Yeah, and
you know,
and you know, to each iteration their own.
Yeah, because that's one of the great things that we've been learning through this process is that learning the different versions of KAMAPUA. For instance, the Klakaua version of KAMAPUA, where he's a human, and this is before he becomes a god and a legend. He's just a regular man, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting way that Kalakaua describes him.
Mm-hmm. And I think it would befit independent producers or studios to really work with yourselves, the community, to really tap into something authentic and real, rather than trying to co-opt it for commercial and licensing purposes, you know. So I just wanted to introduce this idea of the participatory culture. There's a transmedia thought leader, Henry Jenkins, wrote a book called Spreadable Media, and he makes a few points here. A culture where we make media as well as consume it. We're not victims of the media or powerless to it. We see ourselves as part of a conversation with mass media rather than people who suck it all in. We are becoming active, not passive. So this is the idea of a more fluid collective journey with these stories that I'm hoping will continue to be the direction that we go in. So I'm gonna try and play this trailer. I'm sorry, my Brooklyn Wi-Fi is not so good today, but I'm gonna try and play this trailer, and we'll see you on the other side of this trailer. This is a picture that Kaliko produced and did very well at the Hawaii International Film Festival last month. And so let me try VLC. Oh, Stacy, are you there?
Yeah, what's up?
Can I drop a link for you to play for us?
Oh, sure. Oh. Thank you for joining us, Kelly. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to sign in March 4th. Mahalo nui, Solomon and Kaliko, for being with us. We're so excited. We do have a question. Someone says, aloha. They're curious, while we're getting this set up, if you don't mind answering. Jasmine is saying that she's curious, is there consideration of inclusion of Vaihine ama mahuakua ameme'e? Ooh, kalamai my olelo on that last part just failed. So Please
Yeah,
feel free.
Solomon, you wanna answer this one?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of the reasons why I think we're starting with KAMAPUA is, well, Kaliko and I are men, so and KAMAPUA is he's like the nectar of manness.
A pig.
And men, yeah, oops, yeah.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that.
but we got to address our madness, and our madness, right? I mean, the state of the world is the way it is because our paternal systems, and it's not working. This is not a functioning world. We are dysfunctional. And I think the future is female, absolutely. And I think what we want to be able to do is we need to have our wahine tell the stories again. In fact, I'll even go to say that almost all the stories that were told were women. Women were the predominant storytellers. This is what I learned. And so why that's also why one of the main epics in Hawaii is the Hi'iaka Ikapoli o Pele epic, is the story about Hi'iaka. And Hi'iaka is the warrior sorceress, kick butt. I mean, she is just amazing. And the whole story is about her retrieving this man for Pele and bringing Lohi'au from Kauai all the way back to Hawaii Island. And Lohi'au is dumb. In fact, he's dumb and handsome. That's all he is. He's basically a prop for the whole thing. So it's like the opposite of a James Bond movie, right? You have a
Prince Charming.
Woman. What was that?
Or Prince Charming.
Yeah, right. It's actually so KAMAPUA though is for us, he's one of the best character to choose because he's very forgiving. We can get KAMAPUA wrong and he'll forgive us. We would not be forgiven for getting Hi'iaka wrong. Because we continue with the metaphor of land, we've just opened up this new land. We're opening up this new old soil, this new old story. And so we're going to make mistakes. We're going to plant the wrong things. We're going to tell the story the wrong way as a process of getting things right. KAMAPUA is he's the perfect guinea pig, for in so many ways for what we're trying to do. But definitely, we want to be able to light the fire that gets wahine, narratives and wahine storytellers to be center stage. And if KAMAPUA and what we're doing can be like the diving board that allows other people to leap off of, then we're doing our job. But yeah, we're men, so we're starting it from the man angle for now. That's my interpretation.
Yeah, another thing to consider too is KAMAPUA in many ways he's lost, and he's got a big hole in him. He's trying to figure it out. He's trying to fill the hole, and a lot of times his grandmother is his guiding light between right and wrong. And so there's a heavy female influence on him, and there's not really any male guidance towards him given to him, and only until the end. And just to reiterate what Solomon was saying, KAMAPUA, he again, because we're men, he is a representation of men, the good sides, the best of men, and then the worst of men. He's done it all. I put a list of everything he's done. It's the most heinous stuff and really good stuff. And that's a good teacher for men to learn from KAMAPUA. And men have been learning from KAMAPUA for a long time. And one of our comments that we did on the Kalakaua text, Solomon drew in a Mahu female warrior who's just badass, killing all these guys, and she's like right hand man to KAMAPUA, and we would love to see more of that character and develop that character more within that story, within that Kalakaua text. But yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
and what was the name of that book you did, Solomon, with Pele? Didn't you illustrate?
Yes, it's the epic tale of Hi'iaka Ukapoli o Pele.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful tome.
Mm-hmm. And as it happens at the very end of the book, I won't give it away, but how the ending is. But Hi'iaka learns that there is this pig god in Hawaii Island that is threatening her sister. So she has to go back to Hawaii Island to help her sister. So it actually ends. This is why it's like what Kaliko was talking about. KAMAPUA is, his story touches on a lot of different other stories. The Hi'iaka epic ends where one of KAMAPUA's stories begin. So it's a really great segue from one narrative to the next.
Awesome. So I know you both, Solomon, you and Kaliko had touched upon kind of telling the story and then reiterating on it in order to get it quote unquote right. I'd love to ask more about that process and how you guys have been receiving feedback, but I also do know we set up this video. So would you guys like to segue into the video next, or would you be opening to answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to you folks.
We're gonna get to it in the second half. Yeah. So maybe we can play the clip and we'll pick up where we left off.
Bear with me for a while. Got a very bad cold.
All right. Yeah, so that was the trailer for Hawaiian Soul. It's a short film, short 20-minute film on George Helm, and I served as one of the main producers. Oh, thanks. Oh, thank you, guys. Uh, I served as one of the main producers, and I was early on working with the director Aina Paikai and telling his story. My actually in the film, I played my dad, who was who was a bass player for George at the time when he passed away, and it was really my father who gave me this little insight into George, which was his uh, his his music was a huge part of his life. It was the one thing that he was super obsessed about, and which is why he's still one of the greatest Hawaiian singers and guitar players. And even with the combination of the two, it makes him stand out as one of the greatest in history. And so that's kind of the angle that we decided to tell this film, was through, what, trying to, there's many different ways you could tell the George Helm story, and a lot of times people try to focus on his death, the way he mysteriously disappeared, coming back from Ko'olave to Maui, um, which is one of the reasons why the film hasn't been made yet, because it hasn't got the approval from the family. Our angle had to do with, the one thing that made him so unique was his music and the way he could open doors through just singing one song. Like there's and getting people who were totally against him, midway through the song, they want to hear what he has to say, and they actually love him. They, you know, so that's kind of what we focused on, and we didn't, we didn't know how the public was going to take it, and we ended up winning 2 awards from the Hawaii Film Festival, which was Best Short and Audience Award winner. Yeah, which is really awesome, because it's usually you get one or the other. Usually they don't both. You don't get both, and as soon as this movie was finished, or Aina really just wanted to show it to Hawaii first. Usually you kind of do it the other way around. You show it to the world, and then you stop at Hawaii last. So even if there wasn't a film festival, and if there wasn't COVID, we'd be showing it all over the place. George Helm, I wish Lana Wong is one of our other partners. I wish he was here so he could talk about George and his relationship to Ko'olave. But in many ways, George is looked at as a lono, and trying, initiating, with the guidance of the kupuna at the time, initiating the Makahiki practice on Ko'olave, which is a huge thing, which is something that the members of the PKO Ohana, the Protect Ko'olave Ohana, they still practice every year. They go to Ko'olave and they have Makahiki ceremony. And
for those unfamiliar, it's kind of the Thanksgiving celebration of the harvest, the first fruits acknowledgement that is seen in many different cultures around the world, but Makahiki is particular to Hawaii. And yeah, it was definitely revitalized during those times where the film is set, through the efforts of George Helm and Protect Ko'olave Ohana. And so we just wanted to tie that in as well, as a celebration of the harvest and the fruits of. How long was the journey of Hawaiian Soul, Kaliko?
Well,
several years.
It was actually, it took a little bit of time.
Yeah.
It took Aina first wanted to do it about like 7 years ago, but I know was working in his field. I was working in the film industry, which doesn't offer much downtime. And we just from the moment when we got our first grant through Pacific Islanders Communication, which is a $25,000 grant, that's when basically 6 months from that we were shooting, and then it took another 10 months to edit and do all the other post sound and everything. And I left the Instagram for our Hawaiian Soul. That's where you'll be able to see what film festivals we're showing at. All the film festivals are virtual. And we also offer, like for groups like this, exactly right now, like 18, we also offer private showings for groups and organizations for a fee.
Institutions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Awesome.
Share that info.
Yeah, but you just follow that site to see what film festivals we're going to be at. And now that we're down in Hawaii, we're entering it all into all the film festivals all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, feel free to pick up a Hawaiian Soul Calapico shirt.
For sure.
Yeah, so yeah, mai ka'iloa. So I just want to shift again to back to KAMAPUA. And with the pandemic, we've seen production shut down, of course. But I just want to share some slides for us. More people spending time at home, which is already accelerating the war of the streamers. And movie theaters are, on their last legs, it seems. We see gaming increase tremendously. The dark blue is 2019, and the white part is 2020. So more people at home, escape from reality. We're already moving in this direction with what's called the metaverse, and so all these companies looking for story worlds and video game universes to develop into transmedia properties. And so I'm just going to skip ahead to this interesting article in Forbes that kind of speaks to how it connects to KAMAPUA. And it's this interesting story that surprising new data shows comic readers are leaving superheroes behind. And so there's more of an interest to see what else is there. And so I think this is really, really exciting. And I'll just share these 3 panels. And if you guys could just tell us what we're looking at or the process, because there's 3 different panels. So the first one is in Olelo, Hawaii.
Yeah, so my father's family is from Palolo, and growing up, I've always heard about the legend, the story of the giant chicken who would live back at Ka'o Crater. That was his home, and his fighting with KAMAPUA. So, as a child, it kind of your imagination of how the fight went, what they look like, and if you're standing there, and that's what this is a little test run that we've done. So a lot of the images that you folks have seen, and just to reiterate what Chris was saying earlier about participation, it was Solomon's idea to include the public. in the process of KAMAPUA and gaining feedback and seeing what people had to say. Usually like for Hawaiian Soul, I would like to announce it like when we're already shot it, when it's already like 70% done. And so this is a totally new thing. This is like a totally new thing for me of including the public, and a big reason for that is because it's KAMAPUA. Because KAMAPUA is a God who is for everybody. He's always been that God for everybody. There's never been like a priest or a kahuna to access KAMAPUA.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of our test comic series. I wrote it first in Olola, Hawaii, and then we translated it back into Olola. And you can see
next slide we have the English.
You can see the rest in Solomon's Instagram, but basically this is a very older KAMAPUA, a kind of disgruntled KAMAPUA, and he's coming for blood. But and for this piece, it was very important for me to see Palolo, to see the crater, to see like Solomon's got a great image of like this giant wide shot, and you see the valley, and you see their size. And this comic was really cool because there's a lot of movement to it. There's hula in this, and his female interest, she's honoring Ka'ohelemoa by performing a hula for him that she wrote. And so as she's moving, we see the chicken moving in his fighting stance. And this is an example. I think this one was executed well, and it's just an example that we could turn this into an animation, especially with the hula, and you can hear the sounds. Like one thing that doesn't come across in this comic is the sound of the pahu. Like that's super important for this piece. Is you hear the pahu going, you hear the person chanting, you hear all the movements and grunts and fighting and everything. I don't know. Does that does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I love that. I love that it comes from your ohana too, from your dad, and just that personal connection too is great.
From my grandfather and his father before that, even our connection to Palolo.
And so
even this scene is our old. This is our old where my great grandfather used to live in his little shack next to the river. And to start this off, she's looking at the water and she's wondering why is it red, because the water of that area is famously known for being red. And he says, well, that's the blood of Ka'ohelemoa. Because in the story, he's basically that's Ka'ohelemoa's blood that's still pouring out even to this day. So we can see how KAMAPUA, he's touched upon all these different lands, all these different ahupua'as, and that makes him even more real to us. He's touched his foot upon all the different islands where we actually still can see the ahupua'a. It's still the same name of the ahupua'a to today, and even going to Tahiti and making his mark on Tahiti.
Mm-hmm. And I think we was talking the other day that the approach is different because you guys are fans first, and you're lovers of these stories, and so it truly is a labor of love in that sense, and it's just so amazing to have that sense of humility too, when you're having that dialogue with the community. Just a totally different approach. So I wanted to share just I mean,
and that was a good example too. Like there's not much written about it, that story, that fight scene. So it's like Solomon, me
Yeah.
and Solomon had to kind of create the fight scene. And yeah, we're fans first, kind of like like the Mandalorian. That was like the first question they asked. Are you a fan of Star Wars before they hire these directors? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're gonna move to our last word of the day. So we've talked about Makahiki, Lono. We've talked about Makahiki and George Helm, Hawaiian Soul. We've talked a lot about Kamapua. And we're beginning to touch upon this idea of transmedia, which we'll start to close up with. But just the idea that different ways of sharing the story in different mediums and formats, and this idea of the collective journey. So just share a few slides and a few more examples of this, that the direction that you guys are going with. We were just talking about The Mandalorian. Disney disturbs the force. Pleasing Star Wars fans complicates saga. So they don't always get it right, or they don't always please everyone. But really, Disney, if we go further back, had the blueprint for transmedia, and you see how everything feeds into another format or medium. You have the TV in one corner, and the music and records in another corner, the merchandise licensing, the toys, of course, comic strips, magazines, books, children's books, and then at the center is the theatrical releases, yeah, and they're all kind of feeding into each other. And so this is the makavalu, as Solomon was observing before, that this is just one window into how the story is going to be unfolding and being released, and is just the beginning. And I just want to share these other images from Kaliko. Oh wait, Kalamai. Let me try again. So we have just two images. Yeah, we have this.
Yeah, this is the Kalakaua text, and yeah, in this he's just a human being, but
Whoa.
he's before a human being, he's massive compared to everyone else. I mean, half of his body is tattooed, so he almost becomes this monster.
And his cape is full of these boars, yeah, these little boar tusks.
Well, that's just an interpretation of his warriors. I mean, Solomon, would you like to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. So it's like Game of Thrones is what they call low fantasy. And then there's like, Lord of the Rings, which is high fantasy. So in KAMAPUA, you have high fantasy version, just like someone had quoted some work from Lily Kala's research that she did on KAMAPUA. I mean, that's where he's transforming into things. He's fighting all these fantastical monsters, and whereas in Kalakaua's version, it's more low fantasy. It's more about the human condition. Outside of the fact that he is something like 8 feet tall, we're really dealing with KAMAPUA more as an anti-hero, because he wasn't very popular with the chiefs, with the authorities. He wasn't very popular at all. He was really the people's, like Kaliko was saying earlier. And so, but what's really been important is for us to, to try to look at KAMAPUA from as many different angles as possible, and to try to celebrate all the different interpretations of KAMAPUA that existed. And so in this here, it's just a little nod with the, with the cloak becoming boar tusks and people. It's symbolic of the warriors that are following him. But yeah, definitely more of a low fantasy version.
Awesome. And then here's another iteration.
Yeah. So this is something I just literally just put together about a week ago or so, a couple weeks ago, and it was a figure. It's about 6-7 inches tall, and it is another interpretation of Kamapua, but done in 3D, and it's actually hand sculpted using foil and armature, and I used a 2-part epoxy clay, and I built it completely from scratch. And again, it's like we're gonna I'm not waiting for $1 million or $2 million or $7 million or $8 million to do any of this work. What Kaliko and I have been doing is we've just turned this into our hobby. We've just said, well, we're going to have fun making stuff. And later on, if people want to give us the support that we need to take it out into the rest of the world, great. But until then, we're going to shoot for something excellent. We're going to shoot for something that I'm also a big fan. I'm a big fan of Katsuhiro Otomo, and he is the person who created Akira, and it's a Japanese animation that, even though it was created 85 plus 20, so it was created about 35 years ago. Oh my god, yeah, it came out about 35 years ago, and it's still one of the most amazing animation that has ever come out of Japan because of the quality of the work. We want to attain that level of excellence with the work that we're doing here, because we want to try to set a benchmark for all the other stories that are going to come later on. But what's really exciting and a tremendous amount of freedom for us is to be able to experiment with Kamapua, and to then build off of that. And we're gonna teach ourselves along the way. And when people are ready to support what we're doing, we will already have learned. We've already would have learned how to sail our own canoe. Just around the lagoon, and then we'll head out to the big ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how you guys been doing or solve these outreach with the community, because it's interesting to note you guys were releasing this stuff, and the backdrop was the killing of George Floyd, last summer. And so I noticed this partnership with the Popolo Project. Could you tell us a little about just how it was last summer creating and also having that offering have a greater meaning to the world,
Absolutely.
and the applications. The chiefs didn't like Kamapua.
Yeah. He stood up against the authorities. So Kamapua is the perfect avatar to represent Na Poe, the people. He is the people's god. And like Kaliko was saying, you didn't have to go through the kahuna. You didn't have to go to the priests to get access to Kamapua. And so, it's a real desire to understand the nature of power and how power flows, and it was all, and standing in solidarity with other peoples who have been oppressed throughout history, and with working with the folks at Popolo Project, working with other nonprofits in Oahu and on the Hawaiian Islands. It really ties together really well as a form of active, and I think the nature of telling stories, the nature of telling legends, myths and legends, and reconnecting with these stories, it allows us to reconnect with ourselves, because, Kamapua, he was handed down from generation to generation for a reason. If he was irrelevant, we would have forgotten him already. He would never have been recorded. There's a reason why our ancestors captured him and, handed him down to us. And so, and also, it's quite auspicious if you think about the timing now, because Kamapua also represents regrowth. After Pele wipes out the forest, with her lava, all of the new plants that come up, all the pula that come up out of the soil, out of the after the lava flow, they're all dedicated, they're all body forms of Kamapua. So Kamapua is the life that happens after the destruction. And we're right there, right now, right today. we're beginning to celebrate new growth, and hopefully, so Kamapua, I think he fits really well into a lot of the struggles that face us. I mean, he is a great avatar for the now. Yeah, and then the final image, a fun interpretation. One of the working titles that we're playing with now.
Speaking of Huli.
Yeah, there we go. Yep. So one of the titles that we're playing with now is Kamapua in the Time of the Gods. Yeah. So, and it's exploring this idea. We think about the creation chant, the Kumulipo. In the Kumulipo, there are 16 va, 16 epochs, I guess you could say. And we are at the 8.5 of those epochs are dedicated to the time of the gods. And then the other 7.5 are dedicated to the time of humans, or the time of man, or I like humans better. And there cannot be a 17th va. If we go into a 17th va, then the whole system is out of balance. And that's why in the Kumulipo, at the end, it says return to darkness, return to Po, return to the time of the gods. So that is exactly where we are as a species, is we need to return to a time of darkness. And oh boy, I love this idea of reclaiming darkness. There is nothing wrong with darkness. There is nothing wrong with blackness. There is nothing wrong with the lack of light. Yeah, I mean, if you ask the birds and the plants what they think about darkness, and the animals, they would say, please, more darkness. So, and it's not a Disney theme. Disney says vanquish all darkness, stay up late and stay online and keep buying things. Yeah, keep producing, keep growing our markets without end. Keep expanding and expanding and expanding until there's nothing left. And no, we need a lullaby for humanity. And I think that's what the story. We need a bedtime story for humanity. So I think that's why, and it's not just Hawaiian story. What I'm really excited about, and I'll take just 30 more seconds to say, is that I hope that right across America, all of our native cultures, they awaken their Kamapua. They awaken all of our native peoples, globally, get reconnected with their gods of regrowth, with their gods of fresh water, with their gods of equilibrium and their gods of love. We need to awaken the modernity are like children. We're like children in a china shop, and we're breaking stuff. And it's kind of like, where are your parents? Who said you can run around this store breaking? We need our elder wisdom, and Kamapua is just one. It's just one of our parents that I mean, he's not the best. He's a bit negligent as far as a parent goes, but we need our elder gods. We need our elders. We need elder wisdom, and that's why I hope Kamapua is a template for other indigenous peoples to reawaken their gods. And everybody's indigenous to somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually just at Disney World in Florida. And
yeah,
it was interesting to see the constant pounding into their characters, where like all the kids knew they knew every single character. They knew what they looked like. They knew their names, and they knew their story, which is a huge part. And that's kind of our goal. That's kind of our goal with this project, is that if we can have, Solomon is painting. He's making the images to these gods, to these names. So we can have these names. We can have these pictures. They can know kind of like what they look like, what their kinolau are. Just by looking at the picture, they can know their names and they can know their stories. And making it cool, making it, that's kind of our big goal in this whole animation piece, is that our kids know the names of our gods and their stories and what they represent. But yeah, just to answer back to Kimo's question, Lily Claus, her research, that, you know, KAMAPUA is many different things. He's a conqueror at times, and other times he's the symbol of rebellion and resistance. And at that time, when this was published, I believe it was published in 1890-ish, was that interpretation of KAMAPUA. It was very resistance. It was resistance against exactly what you're saying, like Western dominance, and that's what they needed KAMAPUA to be at the time. We definitely we're definitely, as we're looking at stories to tell about KAMAPUA, that is definitely one theme that we're looking at to tell, but we're also looking at just him as just as a being finding himself as well, and his adventures, all of his adventures is just part of him, like trying to figure out and being comfortable in his own skin, even, which is a theme I think, I don't know about now, but I know growing up it wasn't totally yet comfortable to be in my skin. But
Yeah.
So we started this project as a short animated piece, that just tells a simple story about KAMAPUA as a child, learning his abilities, being comfortable in his own skin, learning from his grandma, dealing with not being loved by his parents. And it just kind of went. We started doing different things. We started looking at different stories. We started creating. Within that time, we did two little short comics. We did two regular comics, 2 episodes of comics, and we, even for the Kalakaua piece, that was one that I structured out of 16 that we could do.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the idea of making toys based on what we're doing. But our main goal right now, we've got 2 things we're trying to do. We're trying to do a short piece, that short piece will be like a series of different akuas. Our main KAMAPUA project is going to take a little bit, because we're gonna do heavy research. I don't know, Solomon, do you want to talk about that, like the research required to telling that perfect KAMAPUA feature film?
Yeah, and just real briefly, I was going to address someone that was asking about the Akira reboot. I actually haven't looked into that much, but I think I personally watch about 0.7 movies a year at most, maybe 0.8. Maybe I basically I'm like a big fan of like Akira Kurosawa, the film director, and like to me, if you see all Akira Kurosawa stuff, you don't need to watch Star Wars, because that's what Star Wars is. It's just rebaked Akira Kurosawa films. But the goal, one of the goals definitely is to try to figure out how we can create something that is absolutely excellent, and and so part of that process is we're going to want to take our time to create something that involves as many other researchers and folks to because the challenge is that we're proposing a singularity, right? We're saying, we're taking all these different versions and we're saying, here's a KAMAPUA, as opposed to the Kamapua. I think there's a distinction there, because we want people to actually kind of discover Kamapua for themselves, and we also want better versions to show up, just like the Lord of the Rings created, the Gandalf, and everybody then kind of, that's the Gandalf that we hold things relative to. But my hope is that we can create something that is excellent, and we're gonna need plenty of time to do that. And along the way, we'll be training ourselves, because the segue, just quickly back to what we talked about earlier, there are 444,404 gods in the Hawaiian pantheon. So we'll need our own Netflix to tell all their stories, right? And I think that's the exciting thing, is that what we can learn with Kamapua, we can apply to telling all the other stories that need to be told.
Right. Just like George Lucas started out with A New Hope, and he went from there. I just want to give a quick shout out as we're kind of winding down. I want to give a shout out to Houston Howard. His book, You're Gonna Need a Bigger Story, really helped me to wrap my head around this idea of transmedia. And then our friend Jeff Gomez, native New Yorker, who has a wonderful TED Talk on YouTube where he talks about the impact that his childhood in Hawaii had on his career. Went on to work on franchises such as Avatar, Men in Black, Transformers. But yeah, check out his TED Talk if you have a chance. We'll include it in the show notes. And then I just wanted to just acknowledge, this great endeavor is such a wonderful thing to view in this time of Makahiki, because it's this, as my kumu Haile said, of planting the seed inside that you want to see come forth. So it's a wonderful way to start out 2021 and the new decade ahead. The raging 20s. So this is wonderful to share this space with you guys, and mahalo nui. We do have a short clip from our friend Laiana that we would like to play. It's just 60 seconds, and then we can meet again on the other side of the video. And we'll get to any other burning questions in the chat. Aloha Jasmine, your comments are amazing. How Oli y'all are with Popolo Project. Land back, aloha aina back. So if Stacy is ready, we'll just play this closing clip, and we'll see you on the other side of the clip.
Aloha aina ho'i kākou, oleana kanoa waon keia me kahua o lelo o ka lā. Our Hawaiian word of the day is makahiki. E o lelo pu kākou. Makahiki, e ola. The word makahiki means year. Like ka makahiki e lua kaukani umikumahiku, the year 2017. It can also be used to refer to a person's age. Like piha na makahiki he eva ya ke aloha, or ke aloha is 9 years old. The word makahiki also refers to a traditional season that lasts 4 months, from mid-October until mid-February. Used in a sentence, wa hiki mai ka wā makahiki, he wā e ho'omaha ai ke kino, which is translated as, makahiki season has arrived. It is the time to care for your body. The makahiki season was filled with sports and religious festivities and a ban on war during this time. Makahiki season is also the time to let your aina and your body rest to prepare for the upcoming year. E ola mau ka olelo Hawaii, aloha.
What if I told you could go back 50?
Okay, mahalo. Kuitem Kaliko with a mele?
Yeah, I can.
We'll have one mele, one song from Kaliko, and we'll get to any burning questions in the chat. Mahalo for joining us and allowing us to share Makahiki and Kamapua with you. You can adjust your own volume on your side. and Kaliko will have his mic.
Yeah, since I'll do a George Helm song from his land and Molokai. Nice. Mahalo.
Lono ika makahiki.
Lono ika makahiki.
No, no, come on.
So with the same enthusiasm that we say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, Happy Thanksgiving, with that same kind of energy, we have the saying Lono ika makahiki. So everyone at home, you can follow along. Lono ika makahiki. All right. So we just have a few minutes left to go. If if I could ask and a big mahalo to our wonderful Stacy Onipa'a Young, our digital house manager.
Mahalo nui. Thank you guys.
Thank you
Just
for all the
supporting our kami
support.
over here.
Could you help us with some of the questions we may have missed in the comments?
So we had a lot of questions
with these last few minutes we have.
We had a lot of
Oh my gosh.
about the new reboot of Akira. And then we had some questions about the Moana series, and if how essentially how this is all relating in. We also had a good one. Where it was? La la la.
Well,
chat box.
could we take the
Mm.
yeah? Could we take the Moana question, because I really
Yeah.
enjoyed Kaliko's perspectives. Maybe we could touch on that
Oh, yeah.
a little bit.
So Julia asked
so-
if we're excited about the Moana series. Also, if you've ever played Pokemon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon.
Actually, I didn't know there was going to be a series on Moana. Is it like a TV series on Disney Plus type of thing?
I believe so. Let me see if I can give Julia permissions to come over and tell us a little bit about it. Yeah, there you go. Julia, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Because
Hold on, Julia. Oh, I see the little volume thing going, but I can't hear your voice.
Is this
There
working?
we go. Yes.
Is this working?
Yes.
oh yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be on.
Aloha,
Disney.
Julia.
So
Aloha.
yeah,
Say it's not Julia.
this isn't Julia. This is Jacob
Using Julia.
using Julia.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to be on Disney Plus. And
Oh, wow.
even though it isn't really out yet, it's still. I'm actually excited for it. I've been a huge mythology fan for a couple of decades now, not just for Hawaiian and Polynesian, but also other cultures. And I'm actually thinking about making my own fictional one for my movies.
Yeah, I worked on I had a small part to play in doing the Hawaiian translation of Moana. And it was really just
Could you explain that? They did. They dubbed. Was it a dubbing or a live thing? It was basically the same movie, Disney's Moana, but dubbed in Hawaiian language. Yeah, Olelo Hawaii.
yeah.
Is that replayable, or was it a one-time event?
I don't exactly know that much.
The only way I don't know. I don't understand why, but the only way you can watch it is through a school institution.
True.
And I don't know why they don't just make it available like on Disney Plus as another language, which is the goal of the project. But basically,
right, you've got all the other languages, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's on top of all that we're doing. That's like another side goal that I want to do is creating a dub house where it's just you're just doing Hawaiian language dubbing, and it's mostly for me it's mostly animation because you can hide the mouth more in animation compared to live action. And the Tahitians really helped with the story of Moana, the initial story. So part of the deal was, okay, we'll help you with this if you make this into a Tahitian language version. They did that. Taika Waititi was involved early on with the story, with writing, super early. Like they probably only have like 5% of his writing in the finished thing, but he was able to get it dubbed into Mauli language. And at that point, they didn't want to do any more, but because what was presented to them was like it's going to be done through the university system and through schools and be provided to the schools, and they allowed Hawaiian language to also be an option. So the dubbing, they had to translate everything to Hawaiian language. They hired a whole team. They hired Puakel Nogemeyer and his team to translate everything. They hired Haile Opua Baker to direct it, and it was, for me, it was just to see that it was possible with all the actors who came in. We did one day we brought in auditions, and you could see the actors light up. You can see which ones were going to work, which ones weren't going to work, which ones weren't quite expressing. But it was just it was just to see if it's possible. And if you guys have a chance to see it, it's great. The characters come off, everything works.
Oh man, sounds great.
But it's just they don't make, it's just not available.
Also,
through your library,
like,
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you like Polynesian mythology and Hawaiian mythology, I highly recommend the games Pokemon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon, as all of new Pokemon of those games have Hawaiian and Polynesian influences. Not only that, but as a history buff, recently just learned about Kamehameha the First, also known as Kamehameha the Great, the first king of Hawaii. The late 18th century ruler of Hawaii who was responsible for its unification and keeping foreign influence from removing the island's sovereignty and culture while maintaining trade and commerce with the outside world to bring the island's economy into a new age of prosperity. One day during a raid, he slipped and caught his foot under a rock and was unable to move. An opponent came and beat him over the head with a canoe paddle until it broke. This led to Kamehameha passing a law called the Law of the Splintered Paddle when he was in power. This law protects civilians and non-combatants from violence while clearly unable to fight back. No one knows where he was buried because he ordered a secret burial so that his mana, which means spiritual energy, wasn't taken away by others. He's featured on the Hawaiian state quarters. So yeah, I'm a history buff.
Yeah, I think the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has been trying to play him for a while. I think they had a deal with Sony Pictures, but maybe it's moved to another studio now. And how did you hear about this event? I'm just curious.
I found out about this from my mom, and I found out about these historical people from a Japanese TV show called Kamen Rider Ghost, or Kamen Rider Ghost. Wasn't very popular in the series in Japan, but I mean with fans. But hey, it's history. So if you'd like, I can send you a list of all the historical people that I'm.
Oh, I see that in the chat. Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for joining us. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure we get to other questions as well.
There was a question from Brandy just asking about where they can find the epics of Thiakeopolio Pele, Kamapua, and Oloopani here on Maui. if you guys know any area centers of knowledge or places where Grindy can go.
Well, that book that that Kimo mentioned from Lily Claw, from Dr. Lily Claw, is that's a good one that talks about Kamapua's story. It's in English and it has a lot of great notes. And but you could also, if you really wanted to, you could type in, you could search for it online. Kamapua, old newspapers, and yeah, actually I could actually, Solomon, you want to talk about Hiaka?
Oh yeah. So actually, the Hiyaka Ikapolio Pele epic. It's available on Amazon and University of Hawaii Press. So give it a quick Google and you'll find it. Type in my name and Hiyaka and you'll find it. So, but it's not to trivialize it, but it is our Lord of the Rings. There you go. Yeah.
Buy from UH Press.
So it's our Lord of the Rings for sure, and it's an amazing epic, and it's UH Press. I believe they have a reissued version. It's through the University of Hawaii.
Okay, and I think that rounds us out for our questions. Oh, so unless we had anything else, I think we're good to close. Mahalo nui. I know we went way over, so mahalo for the few people who stayed on, and thank you, Kliko and Solomon, for taking the time with us. This is phenomenal for us to share. We can't wait to go around. I'm on Oahu right now, so can't wait to go around and continue to see your work out here. And also the film, Kaliko, we're all rooting for it. You've got many fans, so congratulations.
Be sure to subscribe for Halavai email announcements, and follow us on social media, Halavai NYC, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And we have a website, halavai.org, where a lot of these virtual gatherings are being archived. I think there's a YouTube channel. So we'll include whatever links we have mentioned. We'll try to include them in the show notes, and ways to how to get in touch with you, Solomon. Instagram is, what's the handle?
At Solomon Enos.
At Solomon Enos on Instagram.
Yeah.
Kaliko is the Hawaiian Soul movie Instagram.
For the movie, yeah. And at Kaliko Mai for Instagram.
So mahalo nui for everyone. Have a great evening, great day. Lonoi ka Makahiki.
Hey.
Mahalo, everybody.
Mahalo. All right, folks. Take care.
Mahalo. Hui ho. See everybody March 4th.